The Rings of Power season 1 ended, the internet didn't just move on. It made up its mind. Too slow, too vague, and too unsure of its own identity. And look, as a fan of the lore, a lot of that criticism was very fair. Season 1 felt like it was trying to earn your trust before it earned its own momentum. But season 2 for me changes the game. It proves that the show didn't fail because it didn't understand Tolkien. It failed because it spent 8 hours laying bricks without showing us the house. And season 2 is where the house finally starts to burn down, and that is exactly what the story needed. Now, today we are doing a breakdown of why The Rings of Power season 2 is a massive step up from season 1. I feel like there's a lot of fans in the space that either have not read the books and don't understand Tolkien's lore, and the only lore that they have is from the movies. And as great as the movies are, we have to be real. You know, a lot of people don't still understand Tolkien's lore, and a lot of people have just bit off of what other people think. So a lot of people haven't even finished season 1 or season 2 of the Rings of Power, and they just say it's trash. And so they have all of these strong opinions that they have not formed themselves from seeing the show. So I wanted to educate you guys on why season 2 is a massive step up, and this is coming from someone who wasn't that impressed with season 1, but season 2 I was very impressed. So let's break it down. This is your boy CPH. This is the Loreverse, and let's dive into this. Now, the biggest structural issue with season 1 was that it treated itself like a $400 million prologue. It was a tone poem, a world building document, and really a history of Middle Earth PowerPoint presentation. Arcs were asking you to wait for a payoff that felt like years away, and season 2, in my opinion, fixes that immediately. It moves from who might be important later to this is the board, these are the players, and let's get on and moving. And the mystery boxing session is kind of over. The urgency has finally arrived. And in season 1, Sauron was a gotcha moment, right? And in season 2, he is legit a force of will. By revealing Charlie Vickers as Sauron early, the show finally moves Middle Earth, or finally gives Middle Earth a gravitational center of evil, because he is patient, he is manipulative, and he is deeply ideological. And we are finally seeing the Sauron from the books, who is the giver of gifts, who doesn't just conquer you with an army, but ruins you by offering exactly what you think you need at that moment in time. Not to mention, Galadriel was the most divisive part of the first season, mostly because her character felt unmodulated, right? So she was always at an 11, always intense and always confrontational. And in season 2, it really allows her to breathe. And we're finally seeing the self awareness and the doubt. So when you're watching this, she feels less like a blunt instrument and more like a legendary leader being forged through the trauma of her own failure. And she's learning that her unrelenting reach was exactly what Sauron used to pull himself back into power. And to me, that shows real character growth for Galadriel. Now, one of the biggest critiques of season 1 was the poetic word solid. So if you guys don't know what that is, right? Characters would speak in metaphors that sounded Tolkien-esque but didn't actually mean anything. And in season 2, they understand the difference between being poetic and being purposeful. So when you watch season 2, you can tell off the bat that the writing is cleaner. It's character driven. So when Elrond and Serdon speak now, they are revealing intention, not just like whack theme. And the show has stopped trying to sound like Tolkien and started trying to think like Tolkien. And in season 1, the rings were an idea. And in season 2, they're actually terrifying, right? We are seeing the actual mechanics of corruption. We're seeing how the rings offer a good solution to a bad problem, only to rot the user from the inside out, right? So they aren't just jewelry the plot needs to move forward. They are moral tests that every major character is currently failing. And this is the subtle evil that Tolkien excelled at, and the show is finally leaning into that thing. And look, season 1's Numenor felt like a history lesson, and season 2 makes it feel more like a political powder keg. So you can feel the fear driving the policy, and you can see how pride is blinding the leadership in Farazan and Miriel. And this is the Numenor that actually falls. Not because of a monster, but because of an internal rot. It feels dangerous. It feels localized, and also like Numenor just feels inevitable. And the doom that is coming, right, as we are watching it fall slowly, it is inevitable. Now, there is a massive difference between a show looking expensive and a show feeling epic. Season 1 looked mad expensive. Season 2 feels more epic. Distance matters now. Journeys have consequences. The geography of Oregion and Khazad-dûm feels interconnected. Middle Earth feels vast again, not just like a series of disconnected sound stages. And look, let's be honest here. The Harfoots were a pacing nightmare in season one, and they annoyed me the most, guys. Season two, though, they are better integrated because they have a thematic role. By moving them toward Rune and tying them to the stranger's identity, their wandering finally has a point. They aren't a detour anymore. They are the small hands that Tolkien always insisted move the wheels of the Middle Earth world. Now, season one felt like it was asking permission to exist. It was cautious. Season two is way more confident. The confidence shows up in the editing, the music, and the performances. The actors didn't suddenly get better. Like, they finally have defined arcs and emotional continuity. And when you give a cast clear motivations, the performances naturally elevate the project that they're in. That's why even when you watch episode one of season two of Rings of Power, the show itself just elevates on a level that season one was never ever going to reach. And one of the biggest things that we need to talk about is the tragedy of a delay, because this is where the show finally justifies its existence. It's leaning into the deeply Tolkien theme of evil allowed to grow quietly. The Second Age isn't about a sudden war, it's about a series of misjudgments and delays. It's about good people being too busy with their own pride to notice the shadow in the corner. And season two captures that sense of impending doom perfectly. So I say all that to say this: the Rings of Power season two isn't perfect, but I believe it's purposeful. It didn't double down on its mistakes out of spite, it adjusted. It shifted from a corporate brand exercise to an authored story. And season one will likely be remembered as the messy, necessary foundation that had to be laid so that season two could actually start building the tragedy Middle Earth is finally breathing on screen again. Not a museum, but as a world slowly, inevitably walking towards its own destruction. So, as I said, season one is not as great as season two, and I don't think it ever will be looked as such. But as I said, what a lot of these shows and directors and people that work on projects do is they usually just want to make fans more mad because they want to do what they want. But what we see in season two is that they actually are trying to correct the issues that have happened, and I think it's a shame that fans haven't taken a look at that and looked at that very thing as an improvement. So I love seeing improvements, and I love when studios listen to fans and they're trying to do better, and that's what they are doing with the Rings of Power. So and as I said, this is not a political statement. This is not. I don't care about any of those things. I am not like those creators. I look at the lore, and I look at what they're trying to do, and I look at where the vision is going, and where it looks like the vision is going. I'm really very fond of what they're doing. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell, and peace out.